This week's savvy quilter, Suzanne Marshall, has made a career out of shattering some of the traditional myths of how to quilt and replacing them with her own methods of applique, placement, and hand quilting without a hoop. You were telling me earlier, Suzanne, that when you use your applique technique, it's a bit like putting a puzzle together backwards.
That's right. I'd like to show you.
Okay.
I start by tracing the pattern on a piece of lined notebook paper. I love using lined notebook paper. First of all, it's pretty cheap, and you can find it lying around your house. Secondly, it has lines on it that I use as a reference when I am using this as a template. I line up the lines on the notebook paper with the grain line on the fabric. And I like to match my grain line on the applique piece with the grain line on the background fabric. Okay. So I will cut off the first piece to be appliqued, and I select a piece that is behind everything else. I will then place it on my fabric, pin it to a piece of foam board so that it doesn't slip while you're drawing around it. Now we're ready to start placing our applique pieces. Here's what's left of my pattern. And the piece that we have cut out from the pattern fits exactly in the place where it was taken away.
So you've just replaced that other piece.
Yes.
And it's going to get smaller and smaller as you
Of
go
course,
along.
I placed it in the wrong place, and let's just put it right back where it belongs again.
That looks right, doesn't
Yes, that looks right.
Okay, now what?
Now we're going to cut off the next piece. I can cut this piece off. And you know, I can place the daffodil back in the very same spot because it lines up with the piece that's already on there. Now I can put the fabric in the spot where the paper was taken away. I love to baste the pieces as I go along so that they don't wiggle and move around while I'm appliquing.
And it looks as though your pattern is getting smaller and the pieces are taking its place.
You're
and
right.
It's starting to form a block.
That's right. Notice that I don't have much left of my flower here.
No, you don't.
And the
even
last
less.
piece.
And is this the same technique that you used on the beautiful quilt that we're showing behind you?
Yes, it is. For every multi-pieced pattern on that quilt, I used a piece of notebook paper for the pattern.
Well, it's beautiful, Suzanne.
Thank you, Gina.
And I understand that this method is particularly useful for those quilters who have arthritis or carpal tunnel syndrome. Now why is it so good about this technique for them?
Well, it's quilting without a frame or a hoop that's especially good for that.
All right.
I have put together a daffodil. Notice all the basting that I have in this. That's very important if you're going to quilt without a frame or a hoop. And now I'd like to show you how I go about that.
All right.
I just close my hand together underneath the quilt. And I actually move the quilt up to my needle instead of rocking the needle through my quilt.
I see.
That causes much less stress on the joints. If I were rocking back and forth with this hand, it would be causing stress because I'm applying pressure to get through all of the layers.
All the movement is taking place underneath with your left hand on the bottom.
Exactly. Let me show that to you again using a piece of clear fabric so you can see exactly what my left hand is doing.
Great.
I'm just pinching it underneath. Here's my needle. I'm pricking my finger and bending it back and forth to meet my needle. And that needle is hardly moving.
Look at that. What a great technique that is. Saves time and saves your hands as well.
It does, and it makes me very happy when I hear that people with arthritis can quilt again.
I'm certain. Well, thanks for sharing those techniques with us and bringing your beautiful quilt to share.
Thank you, Gina.
Try this tip from Suzanne Marshall.
When beginning applique, bring your needle up underneath the white line and capture your knot inside the fold. For an outside curve, turn under only enough for one stitch. After all, you can only make one stitch at a time.